Human gives alien girl chocolate, instantly accused of sorcery. Kalen's hands, calloused by years of jury-rigging atmospheric processors and scavenging forgotten ships, trembled slightly as he held out the small, foil-wrapped square. He'd found it buried deep in a collapsed ration pack from a lifeboat that had seen better millennia. It was a relic, useless for energy, but a fleeting whisper of home. The alien woman, known only to him as the Oracle of the Arid Way, tilted her head, her large, multifaceted eyes, the color of twilight dust, focusing on the offering. Her skin shimmered with an inner light that pulsed faintly, a visual representation of the resonance her people spoke of. She was tall, willowy, draped in layers of fine, sun-bleached cloth that mirrored the wind-sculpted dunes of this forgotten planet. Her people had found him half-buried after his ship fell out of orbit, mistaking the wreckage for a divine sign, and him for, well, he wasn't entirely sure what they thought he was. They were a civilization bound by arcane rituals performed in ancient, echoing stone structures carved into the canyons. His presence was a disruption, a potential omen. The Oracle, formally designated as the one who would decide his fate, integration, exile, or dissolution, had observed him for cycles, a silent, luminous presence across crackling firelight or the vast, resonant spaces of the shrine. He'd tried everything to communicate: salvaged translators that chirped nonsense, hand gestures that confused them, diagrams drawn in the sand. Nothing bridged the gap. This, the chocolate, was a desperate, foolish attempt at a shared experience. A tiny piece of his lost world offered as a gesture of peace, maybe even connection. He unwrapped it carefully, the brittle foil peeling away to reveal the dark, slightly crumbly surface. He broke off a small piece and popped it into his own mouth, chewing slowly, letting the bitter sweetness bloom. A tiny, mundane miracle on a planet of vast alien wonders and terrifying silence. Then, with a silent prayer to whatever dusty gods might be listening, he offered the larger piece to her. She watched his mouth, his expression. Her inner light intensified, a flicker of curiosity, replacing the usual serene impassivity. Slowly, elegantly, she reached out a long-fingered hand. Her skin felt dry and warm against his. As she took the chocolate, he held his breath. She brought it to her mouth, her movements precise, deliberate. He saw the delicate, translucent membranes around her mouth part slightly. She placed the chocolate inside, and then everything changed. The Oracle stiffened. The soft internal shimmer of her skin didn't just intensify, it began to flash violently. Colors Kalen hadn't seen before rippling beneath the surface. Angry reds, chaotic purples. Her head snapped back, her eyes widening not in pain, but in what looked like profound disorientation, or perhaps shock. A low, keening sound, more a vibration felt in the bones than heard, escaped her lips. Guards previously standing motionless as statues carved from the canyon rock instantly snapped to attention, their ornate, ritualistic spears lowering, tips pointed at Kalen. He held up his hands, a universal gesture of surrender, though he doubted it translated. Whoa, hold on. It's just food. Not poison, I swear. His voice echoed awkwardly in the silent chamber. The Oracle swayed, one hand pressed to her temple, the other still holding the remainder of the chocolate square as if it were a burning coal. The pulsing light beneath her skin subsided slightly, replaced by a furious, steady throb. She looked at him, her multifaceted eyes no longer serene, but filled with a chilling accusation. She didn't speak words, not in any language he knew, but a resonant tone, sharp and cutting, filled the air. The guards reacted instantly, seizing him. They were strong, their grip like stone fetters. He struggled for a moment, adrenaline surging, but there was nowhere to run, nothing to fight with. He was surrounded, outmatched, and utterly bewildered. Sorcery! A harsh guttural sound erupted from one of the guards, amplified by the resonance of the chamber. Other voices joined in, a wave of sound washing over him. Sorcery of the void. The Oracle, regaining her composure with visible effort, stood tall again. She looked from the piece of chocolate in her hand to Kalen, then back again. Her eyes seemed to pierce him, searching for, what? Malice? Power? He just felt like an idiot who'd offered candy to the wrong person on the wrong planet. She spoke, her voice still resonating with that strange cutting tone, but now accompanied by a series of complex hand gestures that seemed to command not just the guards, but the very air around them. He didn't understand the words, but the meaning was crystal clear. He was a threat, his offering a weapon. The chocolate, his stupid, hopeful gesture of connection, was sorcery, and he was about to pay for it. They dragged him away, not roughly, but with an implacable, ritualistic purpose that chilled him more than any violence. He caught a final glimpse of the oracle, standing alone in the center of the chamber, the small piece of chocolate still clutched in her hand, her luminous skin a canvas of troubled light. He was a prisoner now, his fate sealed by a bite of cocoa and sugar. He was taken to a deep, cool chamber, carved smooth from the living rock. The air here was different, carrying the faint scent of minerals and something else, something akin to static electricity or orgone. There were no bars, no visible restraints, but he knew he was trapped. The guards left him, melting back into the shadows, their presence a palpable weight even in their absence. Hours bled into cycles of soft light and deep shadow, mimicking a slow dawn in dusk, though he saw no sky. Hunger gnawed at him, and the bitter irony of his situation settled like dust. He'd given away his last bit of comfort and now faced punishment for it. The chamber remained empty, save for himself, the silence broken only by the distant, harmonic chanting of the alien inhabitants, or the low thrum of what felt like the planet's own pulse resonating through the rock. Then, the oracle returned. She entered not through a visible door, but seemed to coalesce from the shadows in the corner of the chamber, her luminous form growing more distinct, until she stood fully before him. She wore the same flowing robes, but her expression was different. Still severe, but with a flicker of something. Calculation, curiosity. She carried nothing. She simply observed him. He sat up straighter, trying to project calm despite the fear gnawing at his gut. "Look," he started, pitching his voice low, hoping tone might convey what words couldn't. "I didn't mean any harm. That sweet thing, it's from my world. It's good. It's not magic," he gestured, miming eating, trying to convey simple sustenance. She watched his hands, her eyes following every movement. Her inner light pulsed slowly now, a steady, observing rhythm. She spoke, the resonant tones filling the chamber. This time, she spoke at length, a cascade of precise, ritualistic-sounding phrases, while the words were alien. Their context, the sharp, probing way she delivered them, felt universally like an interrogation. He shook his head, helplessly. "I don't understand. I wish I did. Can you understand me at all?" He pointed to himself, then to her. "You? Me? Talk?" He made a talking motion with his fingers. A faint, almost imperceptible change occurred in her posture. She tilted her head again, and he had the distinct impression she was processing his desperation, if not his words. She knelt slowly, gracefully, about 10 feet away from him. She reached out a hand, not towards him, but towards the solid rock floor. She touched it with the tips of her fingers, and Kaelin saw her skin luminescence shift, intensifying where she made contact. It was as if she was listening to the stone itself. After a long moment, she pulled her hand back. She looked at him again, her gaze sweeping over him. Then she did something that astonished him. She spoke his name, or rather a resonant approximation of the sound he'd made when introducing himself. "Kaelin." It was perfect, he stared. She had understood. Somehow, she had gleaned his designation from his babbling, perhaps through the strange resonance of his presence, or some other sense entirely alien to him. Hope, thin but bright, flickered within him. "Yes, Kaelin, that's me." He pointed to himself again. "You?" She paused, then spoke a single resonant word, a sound like wind whistling through rock. "Ithane." And the oracle, the judge. Her name resonated in the quiet chamber, a fragile bridge across the chasm between their worlds. Kaelin repeated it, carefully, trying to mimic the tone he'd heard. "Ithane." A subtle change in her luminous field acknowledged the attempt. The ice wasn't entirely broken, but a hairline crack had formed. She remained kneeling, her focus intense. "Kaelin," she resonated again, then tapped her own chest. Then she held up the hand that had held the chocolate earlier. Her fingers splayed, A complex pattern of light pulsed across her palm. Sorcery, she stated, the resonant tone sharper than before, but lacking the communal fury of the earlier accusation. It was a statement of fact, or belief, not a condemnation hurled in anger. Kalen sighed, running a hand through his short, gritty hair. Not sorcery, Athene. Not magic. It's chemistry. Biology. It's plants, processed. Like the things you eat? He gestured vaguely. He'd seen them consume crystalline growths from the canyon walls or drink luminous fluid gathered in carved basins. She watched him, her gaze unwavering. It was clear that plants, processed, didn't translate into something comprehensible within her framework of reality. To her people, energy and matter interacted through resonance, through a deep, inherent pulse that connected all living things in the planet itself. An external substance, especially one that caused such a violent, disorienting disruption to her own resonance field, could only be an alien, chaotic influence. Sorcery. She stood then, moving with fluid grace. She began to pace the chamber, a restless energy emanating from her. She stopped before a section of the wall and placed her hand against it again, her skin glowing brightly at the point of contact. He watched, fascinated. It wasn't just touch, it was communication. She seemed to be reading information from the rock, receiving faint echoes or vibrations. After a few moments, she turned back to him. The source echoes speak of your kind, she stated, the words resonating with an ancient weight. Echoes of chaos, disruptors of harmony. Those who walk without the pulse of the living stone. Kalen felt a chill. His people were known here, not as explorers or survivors, but as disruptors, chaos. This wasn't just about the chocolate. It was about his fundamental nature. We don't mean to disrupt, he said softly. We just try to understand, to survive. Bethany inclined her head slightly. Survival without resonance is a void, she replied, her voice carrying a note of profound alien pity. Your offering shattered my inner resonance. It spoke with a voice that was not of the pulse. She held up her hand again. It was pain, she stated, an uncontrolled thought, like 1,000 chaotic whispers screaming in my mind. He finally understood. The chocolate hadn't just been food. It had interacted with her unique physiology, her resonant senses, in a way that was overwhelming and terrifying to her. It wasn't just indigestion, it was sensory overload, a psychic assault caused by a simple confection. His heart sank. This was worse than he thought. He hadn't just offered food, he had accidentally weaponized a snack. Athani continued to observe him, her luminous skin now a calm, steady glow, but her eyes held a weary intensity. The Council of Echoes deems your presence an imbalance, she stated, her resonant voice formal and unyielding. Your offering has confirmed their fear. Such a substance, capable of disrupting the oracle's resonance, a weapon, a tool of the outsider's sorcery spoken of in the deep chants. Kalen swallowed hard. This was bad. The Council of Echoes sounded suspiciously like the villainous faction he'd anticipated. It's not a weapon, he insisted, his voice tight. It's made from things that grow. On my world, you eat plants here, right? Roots, crystals, it's like that, but different. He tried to find a parallel, any parallel. Ethanie was silent for a long moment, her gaze penetrating. Difference does not equate to safety, she replied finally. The whispers of the deep chants warn of difference that corrodes, that unravels the threads of the pulse. She took a step closer, her tall form casting a long, shimmering shadow in the chamber's dim light. My duty, as Oracle of the Arid Way, is to judge this imbalance, to restore harmony. Kalen braced himself. And what does that judgment involve? He asked, trying to his voice steady. Dissolution? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached out her hand, her fingers hovering inches from his face. He didn't flinch, forcing himself to meet her gaze. Her luminous field intensified slightly, and he felt a strange pressure in his skull, a faint echo of the disorientation she had described. It was as if she was trying to read him, not with her eyes, but with her very being. The council demands resolution, she stated, her voice lower now, less formal. They speak of the rites of unraveling, to return the outsider to the void from which he came. Kalen understood, unraveling translated pretty clearly to death. There must be another way, he said, his voice urgent. I didn't come here to cause problems. My ship crashed. I just want to survive. He looked around the chamber. If you think I have some kind of power from this sorcery, use it. Test me. Don't just unravel me. Ithani pulled her hand back, her luminescence dimming slightly. His willingness to face a test seemed to register. A test? She echoed. The concept alien yet perhaps intriguing within her ritualistic framework. The rites of unraveling are the test. They determine if the imbalance can be purged. But that's a death sentence. It is the judgment of the echoes. But you are the oracle, he pressed, daring to challenge her. You are the one who interprets the echoes. What do you resonate? What does your pulse tell you? Her eyes narrowed slightly. He had touched upon something sensitive, perhaps the conflict between her personal resonance and the collective will of the council echoes. My pulse seeks the truth of the imbalance, she replied, her voice regaining its formal tone, and it has been disrupted by your offering. This chocolate is not inert. It possesses a discordant energy. She paused, looking at the spot where she had touched the wall earlier. The deep chants also speak of the binding of contrasts, she murmured, almost to herself, a phrase Kalen didn't understand but which sounded ancient and significant. When two opposing resonances meet, harmony can be found in forced alignment. She looked at him again, a new light in her eyes. Perhaps, she said, the word hanging in the air, your test should be not one of unraveling, but of binding. The idea of binding instead of unraveling seemed to shift something profound in Ithani's demeanor. The rigid formality softened slightly, replaced by a focused, almost analytical intensity. The rites of binding require a shared pulse, she explained, pacing again, her movements swift and deliberate. They are traditionally performed to unite lineages, to forge alliances, or to contain dangerous chaotic energies within a stable form. She stopped, turning to face him fully. My inner resonance was shattered by your offering. The council demands that this chaos be resolved. The rites of unraveling would destroy you, but perhaps the rites of binding can incorporate you, contain the chaos within a structure. Kalen felt a prickle of unease. Contain the chaos within a structure sounded less like a fair trial and more like becoming a living prison cell for accidental sorcery. What does this binding involve? He asked cautiously. What kind of structure? Ithani's luminous field pulsed with a complex pattern, too subtle for him to interpret, but he sensed a shift in her emotional state. It is a physical and resonant connection, she stated, a merging of pulses. Your disruptive energy must be aligned with a stable, resonant source. My own. Kalen blinked. Merging our pulses? Like we become one? Her gaze was steady. In a way, your being would resonate with mine. Your chaos would be anchored. My own resonance, disrupted by your offering, would be realigned. She paused, her expression unreadable. It is a deep bond, a permanent one. A deep, permanent bond, just because he gave her chocolate? His dry humor kicked in, a desperate attempt to find normalcy in the utterly bizarre. So let me get this straight, he said, a wry smile touching his lips. Because my candy bars mess with your internal radio frequency. The solution is marriage? We get hitched to stabilize the signal? Ithani stopped pacing. She looked at him. Her head tilted. The word marriage was clearly alien, but the concept of two beings joining permanently for a ritualistic purpose resonated. Her internal light flickered, a tiny dance he couldn't decipher. Marriage? She echoed, trying the sound. If that is your term for the binding of contrasts, then, perhaps. Kalen stared at her, dumbfounded. He'd meant it as a joke, a ridiculous comparison, and she was confirming it? He, Kalen, the guy who couldn't hold down a steady job or a steady relationship, was about to get ritually bonded, possibly permanently, to an alien oracle because of chocolate-induced sensory overload. This planet was officially insane. So if we do this binding, he clarified, trying to wrap his head around it, does that satisfy the council? Does it mean I don't get unraveled? Ithani resumed her slow pacing. The council seeks resolution. They desire the cleansing of the imbalance. The binding is an ancient alternative to unraveling for energies too potent to simply dissipate. It requires great sacrifice from the one who resonates strongest, myself. It is a dangerous rite, but if successful, it aligns the chaotic energy, makes it useful, makes it part of the way. Useful, part of the way, he was potentially going to become a living, walking human power source or cultural artifact. His life just kept getting weirder, but it was clearly better than being unraveled. Okay, he said slowly. What do I have to do? The rite of binding is a journey through shared resonance, Ethani explained, leading him from the silent chamber into a vast, echoing space, carved from red rock, open to the sky high above. The air here was warmer, thinner, carrying the scent of sun-baked stone. He saw other figures, shrouded and silent, observing them from the edges of the cavern. The council, perhaps. Ethani wore a different garment now, simpler, made of a material that seemed to absorb and re-emit light in intricate patterns that shifted with her movement. You must open your pulse to mine, she continued, her voice steady despite the obvious tension emanating from the observing figures. Allow my resonance to encompass yours. You will feel everything. Kalen felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Everything sounded daunting, coming from someone who described a piece of chocolate as 1,000 chaotic whispers screaming. Everything? He echoed faintly. My thoughts? My memories? My regrets? Ethani paused, turning to him. Her luminous eyes searched his face. The echoes of your being, she confirmed. The substance of what makes you, Kalen, and I will share mine. The pulse demands complete transparency for true alignment. Great. His entire messy life, laid bare for an alien mystic in her silent, judging counsel. This just got worse. And the chocolate? He asked. How does that factor in? The substance itself must be present, she stated, holding up a small, polished stone basin containing the offending confection. It seemed even in ritual. The cause of the disruption was central to the cure. It is the point of dissonance. It must be integrated, its chaotic energy tamed within the shared pulse. She placed the basin on a A's platform in the center of the space. We will stand opposite each other. Our pulses will reach across the void. Then, we will touch, skin to skin, and the rite will begin. She gestured to a spot on the platform opposite the basin. Kalen walked towards it, his boots crunching on the fine red dust. The silence from the observing figures was absolute, heavy with expectation. He reached the designated spot and turned back to face her. Athene moved to her position, her steps deliberate, graceful. The distance between them felt vast, charged with unspoken tension and alien mystery. She stood tall and serene, beacon of luminous energy against the ancient stone backdrop. Kalen, in his worn salvage clothes, felt like a piece of junk mail delivered to a sacred temple. The contrast was stark, almost comical. Athene raised her hands, palms facing him. He mirrored the gesture, unsure if it was required or just instinct. Her luminous field began to expand, a soft, golden light reaching out towards him. He felt it before it touched him, a warm current flowing through the air. As it enveloped him, he felt a strange pressure, not unpleasant, like stepping into warm water. Then a sensation unlike anything he had ever experienced flooded his mind. It was not thought or sound or sight, but a pure feeling of presence, of deep connection, of another being's consciousness reaching out to his. It was Ithene's pulse, her resonance, touching his own. The sensation of Ithene's resonance was overwhelming, yet strangely grounding. It wasn't telepathy as he understood it. No distinct words or images were exchanged, but a direct perception of her emotional and spiritual state. He felt her duty, her quiet strength, her deep connection to the ancient pulse of her world. He also felt a profound sense of loneliness, a burden of responsibility carried for cycles. As her resonance deepened its connection with his own echoes began to surface involuntarily. He felt his fear, his bewilderment, the ache of his solitude, but mixed with it were the memories of his past. The smell of rain on earth, the warmth of a campfire under alien stars, the sharp grief of loss, the stubborn spark of hope that had kept him alive. These weren't just memories. They were raw, felt experiences, transmitted somehow through this resonant link. Ithany swayed slightly, absorbing the cascade of unfamiliar echoes. He felt her surprise, her confusion, but also a flicker of understanding, curiosity. His chaotic past, so alien to her ordered, ritualistic world, was not immediately rejected. The small basin containing the chocolate sat between them on the platform. As their resonant fields intertwined, he saw the chocolate begin to change. It didn't melt or dissolve, but the air around it shimmered and a faint, discordant vibration emanated from it, a chaotic counterfrequency to their merging pulses. Ithani focused her resonant energy on the chocolate, her internal light flaring with effort. She was trying to integrate it, to force its chaotic signature into alignment with their combined field. Kalen felt her struggle, the resistance of the strange sorcery within the confection. He instinctively focused his own awareness on the chocolate, not trying to fight it but to understand it, to explain its nature through their shared resonance. It's just comfort, he broadcasted, pouring the feeling of solace and simple pleasure the chocolate represented into the link. A taste of home, a moment of peace. He felt Ithani's resonance pause, processing this alien concept of comfort derived from chaos. The discordant vibration around the chocolate lessened slightly. Ithani reached out a hand towards the basin, her fingers stopping just above the surface. Kalen mirrored her movement, his hand hovering over the chocolate. Their resonant fields intensified around the substance, a focused energy born of their merging. The silence in the cavern was absolute, the tension electric. He felt the eyes of the council, a collective weight of expectation and judgment. Ithani's voice resonated not just in the air, but directly in his mind, a clear, resonant thought. The binding must be completed. The chaotic pulse anchored. We must touch the source. She lowered her hand, her fingertips brushing the chocolate. Kalen did the same. The instant his skin stint the chocolate, a shock wave of pure, untamed energy surged through him. It wasn't the gentle pressure from before, but a violent jolt that ripped through their shared resonance. The chocolate, the innocent little square of comfort, was reacting to their combined pulses in an unforeseen way. The energy surge from the chocolate was immense, tearing through their delicate resonant link like a physical blow. Kalen cried out, staggering back. Then he stumbled, her luminous field collapsing violently, the vibrant colors replaced by a dull, flickering gray. The observing figures around the cavern gasped, a collective rush of air. The air crackled with residual energy. Kalen felt a wave of nausea wash over him, his mind reeling from the sudden brutal disruption of the connection. Ithani pressed her hands to her temples, keening softly, a sound of pure resonant pain. The sorcery of the chocolate, amplified by their attempt to bind it, had lashed out. The council of echoes erupted in a storm of resonant accusation. Their collective pulse felt like a battering ram against Kalen's senses. Angry, fearful, demanding. Unravel. The command echoed through the cavern, bouncing off the stone walls. The binding is defiled. The outsider rins ruin. Two guards surged forward, spears leveled. Adi, despite her pain, straightened, holding up a hand to stop them. Her voice, though strained, cut through the resonant chaos. No, it is not ruin. It is unexpected. She looked from the crackling air above the chocolate to Kalen, her eyes wide with a raw, exposed vulnerability he hadn't seen before. The shared resonance, however brief and painful, had stripped away some of her oracle's impassivity. She had felt his echoes, his intent, perhaps even the simple, non-malicious nature of the sorcery. His pulse is not aligned, but it is not inherently corrosive, she resonated, struggling for the right terms. The substance reacted to the forcible alignment, not to his presence alone. Her defense was weak, however, against the tide of fear and dogma from the council. He must be purged. The rites of unraveling must commence. Their resonant demand was a physical force, shaking the very stone of the cavern. Ithani faltered. The weight of tradition, of the council's authority, was crushing. Kalen saw it in the flickering light of her skin, in the subtle tremor in her stance. She was bound by ritual, by the expectations of her people. His fate was about to be sealed, not by malice, but by ancient law and accidental chemistry. Desperation clawed at him. He wouldn't let a piece of chocolate be the end of him, or worse, be the ruin of this fragile, unexpected connection with Ithane. His gaze fell on the basin holding the now volatile chocolate. It was the source of the disruption, the focal point of the sorcery, and he was the one who had introduced it. Maybe, just maybe, he could use that to their advantage. If the binding couldn't contain it, maybe he could. Maybe his own non-resonant, chaotic nature was the key. Ignoring the guards, ignoring the furious pulse of the council, he took a step towards the basin. "Pithani," he called out, his voice loud and clear, cutting through the resonant din. "The substance, the chaos, it came from me. Maybe I'm the only one who can absorb it." It was a wild gamble, an insane idea born of survival instinct and a sudden fierce protectiveness he felt towards the vulnerable oracle. Then I stared at him, her luminous eyes wide as Kalen approached the basin. His suggestion was reckless, unheard of. To willingly engage with the source of the chaos that had just thrown their combined pulses into disarray, the council's resonant chorus intensified, a clamor of outrage and warning. "Stop him! The outsider seeks self-destruction, or worse, seeks to channel the forbidden energy." The guards hesitated, looking to Ithane for command. She stood frozen for a moment, caught between the ancient laws of the council and the unpredictable reality unfolding before her. She had felt his echoes during the brief binding, his lack of malice, his raw desire for survival. She had felt the jarring nature of the chocolate's energy, but she had also felt the intent behind his offering, however misguided. Perhaps his unique, non-resonant nature was not a weakness, but a different kind of strength, a container for energies her people could not control. "Wait," she resonated, her voice cutting through the council's din, though it was a command tinged with uncertainty. The guards paused, spears still aimed, but not advancing. Kalen reached the platform. The air above the chocolate still shimmered, a visible distortion of reality. He could feel its chaotic energy radiating outwards, a dissonant frequency that grated against his own sense of self, faint though it was compared to Ithane's reaction. He looked at Ithane, his gaze steady. "Trust me," he said, the simple human words feeling immense in the charged atmosphere. She met his gaze, and in the depths of her luminous eyes, he saw a flicker of something new. Not just oracle, but a female being making a terrifying choice. She nodded, a small, almost imperceptible movement. "Proceed, Kalen," she resonated, her voice low. "But be warned, the energy is untamed. It may remake you." He took a deep breath. Remake him? Better than unravel him. He knelt beside the basin. He reached out his hand, not tentatively this time, but with purpose. He picked up the piece of chocolate. The moment his fingers closed around it, a wave of sensation hit him unlike anything the resonant link had caused. It wasn't just felt. It was seen, heard, tasted, and smelled simultaneously, yet not through his usual senses. It was pure information, flooding his consciousness. Flavors became colors, scents became sounds. The chemical structure of the chocolate translated into complex geometric patterns that unfolded in his mind. It was overwhelming, intoxicatingly strange. He felt the energy of the chocolate integrate with his own biology, not harmonizing, but slotting into the chaotic, flexible framework of his human system. It wasn't a smooth merge. It was like pouring liquid metal into a complex, ever-shifting mold. He felt a warmth spread through his chest, a strange new energy settling within him. He looked at the chocolate in his hand. It no longer shimmered with chaotic energy. It was just chocolate. He had absorbed its disruptive resonance. Somehow, he looked up at Ithane. Her luminous field was no longer gray and flickering. It had returned to its steady golden glow, perhaps even brighter now. The look in her eyes was one of profound shock, awe, and something else, a nascent understanding. The council was silent, their resonant clamor replaced by a stunned, uncertain quiet. He had done the impossible. He had tamed the sorcery. The silence in the cavern was deafening, broken only by the faint echoes of wind high above. Kalen stood, the chocolate now feeling inert in his hand, a simple piece of food again. The wave of strange sensation had subsided, leaving behind a lingering warmth in his chest and a sense of clarity, a heightened awareness he hadn't possessed before. He looked at Athani. Her initial shock was giving way to an intense, searching gaze that felt different from her previous observation. The barrier of oracle duty seemed thinner. You contained it, she resonated, her voice softer now, laced with wonder. The chaotic pulse, it is within you. Kalen flexed his hand, still holding the chocolate. Yeah, I think so. It felt weird, like putting a square peg in a round hole, but the hole just swallowed it. He offered her the chocolate again. Want to try now? Maybe it won't. Scream. This time, Bethany hesitated. Then slowly, deliberately, she walked towards him. She stopped inches away, her presence a field of quiet energy against his own still buzzing system. She reached out, not for the chocolate, but for his hand holding it. Her fingers, cool and dry, brushed against his. A different kind of resonance flowed between them, this time. Not the violent clash of the binding attempt, but a delicate exploratory touch. He felt her wonder, her careful curiosity, and beneath it a tremor of fear and excitement. Her eyes, close now, held his gaze, searching the depths of his human pupils. The echoes are silent, she murmured, referring to the stunned council. They do not understand what has happened. Neither do I. Kalen felt a flicker of amusement rise within him, a familiar human reaction to the absurd. Welcome to my world, he said softly. Happens to me all the time. Ithani didn't smile. Her people seemed incapable of the expression in the human sense, but a subtle shift in the light pattern around her eyes indicated she grasped his meaning. She gently took the piece of chocolate from his hand. This time, when she brought it to her lips, she didn't hesitate. She placed the small square on her tongue. Kalen watched, bracing himself, but there was no violent flash, no keening cry. Ithani's luminous field remained steady, perhaps even pulsing with a new, intriguing rhythm. A slow, deliberate expression crossed her face, something akin to profound concentration. Then, a faint, almost imperceptible light pulsed within her mouth. She closed her eyes for a moment, absorbing the sensation. When she opened them, they were luminous with a new emotion. Not pain, but a complex mix of surprise, pleasure, and deep, alien understanding. It is sweet, she resonated, the tone pure wonder. And it resonates with warmth, with comfort, as you said. She looked at the chocolate, then at him. The chaos is gone. Your pulse, you have integrated it. Ithani held the piece of chocolate, turning it over in her elegant fingers, as if it were a newly discovered star. The awe in her eyes was palpable, replacing the oracle's usual composure. The council is disturbed, she resonated, glancing towards the edges of the cavern where the observing figures remained, their collective pulse a low, confused thrum. They do not know how to interpret this. You have defied the rites of unraveling, yet the imbalance seems contained, transformed. Kalen felt a surge of something he hadn't felt in a long time. Agency. He hadn't just survived, he had fundamentally changed the rules of the game on this alien world, all thanks to chocolate. Maybe the echoes were wrong, he suggested softly. Maybe my chaos isn't meant to be purged or bound to something else, but is meant to be a container itself, a different kind of structure. Ithani looked at him, her luminous gaze pierced. His words resonated with a truth that went beyond simple logic, touching on concepts of form and function that were fundamental to her people's understanding of the universe. A container, she echoed, the word taking on a new significance in her resonant tone, a vessel for energies that others cannot hold. She looked at the chocolate, then back at him, a bold, almost dangerous thought forming in her luminous eye. If you can contain this sorcery, perhaps you can interact with other energies our people deem chaotic or unstable. The implication hung in the air. He wasn't just a survivor anymore. He was potentially a unique tool, a bridge between their ordered world and the chaotic unknown. This was far from the simple marriage he had joked about. This was something deeper tied to the very nature of his being and the mysteries of their universe. What would that involve? He asked, cautiously hopeful. More trials? Ithani didn't answer directly. Instead, she reached out and touched his hand again, her fingers resting on his skin. The familiar warmth of her resonance flowed into him. But this time, it mingled with the residual energy of the absorbed chocolate, creating a strange, new harmony within him. It wasn't a forced alignment, but a willing, curious exploration. The rites of binding sought to contain your chaotic pulse within mine, she resonated, her voice low and intimate. But perhaps the binding was meant for the chaotic energy itself, contained within you, and for our pulses to intertwine, to resonate with each other, not through forced alignment, but through shared understanding. She paused, her luminous gaze intense. The council will demand answers. They will demand resolution. The rites were interrupted, but the need for balance remains. She looked down at their joined hands, her fingers gently tracing the lines on his palm. You are now tied to the pulse of this place in a way no outsider has ever been, and I am tied to you, through the rite, through the chaos, and through this strange sweetness. The word tied sent a shiver down his spine. It wasn't just ritual now. It felt personal, inevitable. The council's fear and the chocolate's accidental sorcery had forged an unforeseen connection, binding their fates together on this remote, dust-swept world. The council, a shifting mass of resonant energy and robed figures at the cavern's edge, finally broke their stunned silence. Their collective pulse swelled with a mixture of fear, confusion, and suspicion. The rites were corrupted. The outsider is a vessel of forbidden power. He must be studied, contained. Their demands were a resonant assault. But Athene stood firm, her hands still resting on Kaelin's, her own pulse steady and strong. He is contained, she resonated, her voice calm and authoritative, drawing strength from their connection. Within his own unique form, the chaos is no longer loose. It is anchored. She looked at Kaelin, a message passing between them through the subtle shift in her luminous field. Stay close. Be ready. The rites of unraveling are not suitable, she continued, addressing the council. His nature is not one of dissolution, but of absorption. He is a living node, capable of integrating energies alien to our own. She turned fully towards the council, her posture radiating oracle authority. The chants speak of the need for new paths when the old ways falter. This is such a moment. The outsider is not a curse, but potentially a key. Her words were met with a torrent of conflicting resonant responses. Doubt, fear, some hesitant acceptance. The council was divided. This was Athene's moment, the test of her leadership as oracle. She couldn't simply execute him, not after he had demonstrated this unforeseen ability. She also couldn't simply let him go. His presence and the energy he now contained were too significant, too potentially disruptive. She had to integrate him, not just ritually, but culturally. He will not be unraveled, Athene declared, her voice ringing with finality. He will remain within the arid way, under my watch. She tightened her grip on Kaelin's hand. He is bound now, not by ritual force, but by the resonance of shared experience. The chaos is anchored within him, and his pulse is now intertwined with mine. He is of the way, in a manner previously unknown. Kaelin felt the weight of her words, of the way. It wasn't citizenship, not really, but it was acceptance, a place, however precarious, within their rigid society, and it was tied directly to Athene. He was her responsibility, her key. A subtle internal pulse from Athene reached him, a feeling of immense relief tinged with apprehension. She had protected him, defied tradition for him, and in doing so, she had bound herself further to him. The observing figures began to disperse, their resonant pulses fading into the cavern's natural echoes. The immediate threat was gone, replaced by the complex reality of his new status. He looked at Athene, her luminous face close to his. The oracle was gone, replaced by the woman who had felt his echoes, tasted his chocolate, and made a dangerous choice. Athene led him from the great cavern, not back to the solitary chamber, but towards the inner levels of the shrine, places he hadn't seen before. The air grew cooler, carrying the scent of underground water sources and ancient dust. The passages were narrower, carved with intricate patterns that seemed to hum with faint energy. The resonant link between them, established during the interrupted rite and deepened by their shared experience with the chocolate, felt like a warm cord stretching between their consciousnesses. He could feel her presence, her thoughts, not in words but as distinct emotional and energetic states, weary duty, cautious optimism, a deep current of curiosity about him, about the chaotic energy he now held. He sent back his own messy echoes, relief, confusion, gratitude, and a budding sense of wonder about her. He had offered her chocolate and been accused of sorcery. He had almost been unraveled. He had accidentally absorbed alien energy, and now he was apparently of the way, bound to the oracle who had saved him. It was a lot to process. They reached a smaller, more intimate chamber, lit by soft, diffused light that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. It was sparsely furnished with woven mats and low, carved surfaces. Anthony stopped, turning face him. The oracle's mantle seemed to fall away completely here. She was simply Ethany, a woman burdened by ancient traditions and captivated by the strange, chaotic human who had landed in her life. The council will debate, she resonated, her voice quiet now, a private frequency just for him. There will be resistance. Many will fear the chaos you hold. They will demand proof that you are a key, not a threat. Kalen nodded. He understood. He was on probation. His life tied to Ethany's ability to manage the situation and demonstrate his usefulness. What proof do they need? He asked. Ethany gestured to him, then to herself. The integration must be visible. The connection undeniable. She stepped closer, her luminous form almost touching his. He felt a new intensity in the resonant link, a pull not just of understanding, but of something deeper, warmer. During the attempted binding, she continued, her voice dropping even lower, a resonant whisper that sent shivers through him. Our pulses, they sought alignment. Your chaos sought a container. My stability sought integration. She reached out a hand, her fingers brushing against his chest, directly over where he felt the warmth of the absorbed chocolate's energy. The chaos is in you, but the connection is between. Her luminous field flared softly, encompassing him. He felt her need, her vulnerability, her tear, solitary existence reaching out for an anchor, and his own echoes responded, the long-buried yearning for connection, the survivor's need for belonging, the simple, powerful pull towards her. The air in the small chamber thickened with unspoken needs. Ethany's hand rested against his chest, the soft glow of her skin warming his clothes. The resonant link between them pulsed with a quiet intensity, a conversation of pure feeling flowing beneath the surface of their alien natures. He felt her vulnerability, the weight of her oracle duties, the deep loneliness that came with interpreting ancient echoes for a people bound by tradition. He sent back echoes of understanding, of acceptance, of a profound gratitude that went beyond words. Her gaze lifted to his face, searching, questioning. The council will look for signs of the binding. She resonated, her voice barely audible, a secret shared only between them. A visible mark, a shared resonance that cannot be denied. She moved her hand from his chest, raising it to hover between them. Her luminous field intensified, shaking itself into intricate, shifting patterns in the air. He felt a corresponding response within himself, the absorbed chocolate energy stirring, reaching out towards her pulse. The failed rite was not a failure, she murmured, her eyes focused on the luminous patterns. It was a reshaping. The binding did not occur as intended, but a different connection was forged. She looked at him again, her expression unreadable, yet filled with a raw emotional intensity that mirrored his own rising feelings. My pulse recognized yours, she stated, the fact resonating with deep significance. Even in its chaos, it sought its counterpart. Kalen reached out instinctively, taking her hand in his. Her skin felt smooth, dry, radiating warmth. The resonant link surged, no longer just communication, but a shared current of raw energy and emotion. It felt like coming home to a place he'd never known existed. Ethany, he said, his voice hoarse. What does this mean? For us? She didn't pull away. Her fingers tightened slightly around his. It means, she resonated, her voice dropping to a whisper, that the rite, incomplete though it was, bound us. Not through law, but through resonance, through the strange energy you hold, and the understanding we found. She stepped closer, until their bodies were almost touching. Her luminous field enveloped him completely now. A warm, protective cloak. He could feel the rapid pulse of her alien heart beneath her skin, a frantic counterpoint to his own steady beat. "The council will demand proof," she repeated, her eyes locking onto his. "A physical manifestation of the binding, a shared mark." She raised their joined hands, bringing them slowly towards their foreheads. The air crackled with energy. He felt the absorbed chocolate energy in his chest respond, flowing up his arm, through their joined hands, and into her. It wasn't painful, but a strange, exhilarating merging. As their joined hands reached their foreheads, Ithani closed her eyes. Her luminous field flared brilliantly, a silent explosion of golden light that filled the small chamber. Kalen felt a searing heat bloom where their skin met, not burning, but intensely focused. The energy he had absorbed from the chocolate surged outward, meeting Ithani's pure, resonant pulse in a powerful, controlled collision. It wasn't chaos this time, but transformation. He felt something shift deep within him, a realignment of his very essence, and he felt Ithani, her strength pouring into him, her vulnerability echoing his own, their individual pulses sinking into a new, complex rhythm. Images flooded his mind, not just echoes from his past, but alien vistas, shimmering crystalline structures, vast, empty deserts under twin moons, figures moving with silent, ritualistic purpose. He saw Ithani's life, her burdens, her deep connection to the land and the pulse. And she saw his, the metal and glass cities, the rushing chaos of his world, the quiet desperation of his isolation, the unexpected tenderness beneath his survivor's shell. Their consciousnesses, brushed, intertwined, merged in a way that transcended physical touch. When the intense light subsided, they lowered their hands slowly, separating them. Kalen felt lightheaded, changed. He looked at Ithani. Her luminous field was pulsing with a new, vibrant intensity, and on her forehead, just above her eyes, a faint, shimmering mark had appeared, a complex pattern of light that mirrored the intricate carvings in the shrine walls. It wasn't just on her. He felt a corresponding mark bloom on his own forehead, invisible to him, but palpable. A resonant signature. "The mark," Ithani whispered, her voice filled with awe. "The resonance of binding. It is made visible." She reached out a tentative hand, not towards his face, but slightly past it, her fingers brushing the air where his mark would be. He did the same, feeling the faint, shimmering energy of her mark beneath his fingertips. "It is proof," she stated, her voice stronger now, resonant with renewed purpose. "To the council, to the way, that the binding is complete, that we are bound." The word felt different now. Not a joke, not a ritual obligation, but a profound, shared reality. They had gone through chaos, through fear, through the breaking of ancient rules, and emerged with a connection that was undeniable, visible even to her people. He had offered chocolate and been accused of sorcery, and that journey had led him here, to this moment, bound to an alien oracle in a way neither of them could have ever predicted. His future, once uncertain, was now inextricably linked with hers, a human thread woven into the luminous tapestry of the arid way. Ithani looked at him, her luminous eyes soft with an emotion he finally recognized. Even across the alien divide, it was hope and love, a love forged in chaos, sealed by a piece of candy. Their bond, marked physically and resonantly, became the cornerstone of Kalen's place within the arid way. Ithani presented him to the council, not as a prisoner or a threat, but as a vessel of integrated chaos, a title that sounded dramatic but carried significant weight. The visible mark on both their foreheads, though his was only perceived resonantly by her people, was undeniable proof of the binding. It wasn't the traditional rite, but its manifestation was recognized as legitimate, albeit unprecedented. The council, still wary, accepted Ithani's interpretation, recognizing the potential utility and Kalen's unique ability to contain and integrate energies that were chaotic to their own resonant systems. He wasn't just of the way, he was a new kind of element within the way, guarded and guided by Ithani, Their relationship evolved in the quiet spaces between his public appearances and the council's watchful eyes. The resonant link remained, a constant flow of feeling and subtle understanding between them. They spent cycles together in the deep, resonant chambers, not just observing, but learning. He taught her about his world, about human concepts like science, humor, doubt, and love, sharing echoes of his experiences. Through their bond, she in turn shared the ancient wisdom of the arid way, the deep connection to the pulse of the planet, the rituals that governed her people's lives. She showed him how his presence now subtly influenced the resonant field of the shrine, how the integrated chocolate engine within him created unique patterns that could be read, like a new language added to the planet's ancient whispers. Their intimacy grew slowly, naturally, woven into their shared lessons and the quiet moments of companionship. It wasn't the forced proximity of a cell, but the shared space of discovery and mutual reliance. Ethane was the oracle, bound by immense responsibility, but with him, she was simply Ethane, curious and deeply, resonantly connected. One cycle, alone in a chamber where luminous crystals grew from the walls, she reached out to him, her luminous skin shimmering not with duty, but with desire. Their physical union was an extension of their resonant bond, a merging of pulses and bodies that felt both utterly alien and profoundly intimate. The energy within him responded to her touch, flowing out to meet her, creating a symphony of light and sensation that transcended mere pleasure. It was a communion, a completion of the binding on a level neither had anticipated. It was a love story written not in words, but in light, resonance, and the unexpected sweetness of a piece of chocolate. The threat of dissolution lingered only as a memory, replaced by the challenge of building a future together, a human and an alien, bound by chaos and love, forging a new path within the ancient arid way.